space in the audience as well as for community questions, and we are going to continue on in this fashion throughout the rest of the year. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to turn the Board of Education meeting over to our president, Ms. Christine Dale.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, yeah, I feel I can actually join in on a pledge with people versus everybody doing it individually. Okay, so first up on our meeting tonight are the action of our meeting minutes. We have 2.01 and 2.02. So can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can we have a second? Okay. Okay, any questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay, turning it over to our community question and comment period. And we're just checking one more time to see if there's anybody outside. But it looks like we don't have anybody here tonight. So just again, just to reiterate, in the future, if anybody has a question or a comment that they'd like to bring to the board, our meetings are now open to the public to be able to come and participate live in the meeting. And so you would just come the night of the board meeting. If you have any other questions, you can always contact the school district through Tom Douglas or Nancy Perillo, and those questions will be forwarded on to the board. So moving on to our student representative, we have Sarah Iorio.
Thank you, Mrs. Dale. So we are back at Horseheads High School, which is super exciting. 4 days a week. Everybody, it's starting to get crowded in there again. Traffic jams in the hallway, but it's a pretty good sign. And Dr. Douglas brought up a couple meetings saying how the light is at the end of the tunnel. And this really just goes to show that it is coming closer now. The athletics for fall sports have ended and our spring sports are starting up soon, which is really exciting. I've been talking to all my friends in the spring and they're just saying how it's finally their time to shine. Student council, we have been planning many events like our Minute to Win It's happening in the month of April. And last night we had a Bob Ross painting event. So we had students come and join us for a little painting with Bob Ross and do a little spring painting, which was really exciting. We have Decision Day on a Saturday this year, unfortunately. So April 30th is Horseheads Decision Day, where seniors get to celebrate their accomplishments and what they plan to do after their life in high school. And today is Administrative Professionals Day, and Student Council gave our secretaries our little gift for how thankful we are for them and just to show how Horseheads wouldn't be the same without them. The senior class is getting closer and closer to super exciting events like our prom and service days. Last week we had our senior week, which was a very fun week for all the seniors to participate in. We had Blackout Day and Raider Day, Hawaiian Day. It was a lot of fun for all of us and we had a little competition with it. And Monday, we gave our seniors a little welcome back donut and a little senior surprise with a mug and some candy. And it was so exciting to see all of our seniors getting back together in the high school, which was very exciting for all of us. Our service event for this senior year is writing thank you cards for our frontline workers. And our goal is to reach 1,000, and we are reaching that mark day by day. And our prom is still happening so far on June 19th, and our theme is Starry Night. We're getting excited as we're getting together our decorations and what we're planning for that. The junior class is having an unconventional spin on their prom this year, though. They're going to do a night out on the hilltop on May 22nd, and this, instead of a formal event, it's a semi-formal event. And they are doing 2 shifts to follow state and county guidelines and restrictions. Senora Carpenter said that the class is looking forward to a well-deserved and long-awaited get-together for the class. The sophomore class had a meeting recently to discuss what they want to do for their service day, and they're also going to be helping with the frontline workers and the spring with whether it's a banner or doing something special for them. And they're going to be doing another fundraiser, and they're going to team up with Rita's to sell pints of your favorite Italian ice. And if you know a sophomore, go and buy and support the class of 2022. Oh my goodness, 2023. They also are the freshmen have extended their spring fundraiser another week because Senora Fesich says they're doing an excellent job with selling and getting all the funds. And if you are looking for anything spring related like seeds, flowers, candy, snack mixes, find a freshman and go support the freshman class. A lot of excitement has happened within the past week, and it is a lot to give in front of all the board today. And it is really exciting to be back in person with all of you. And that is what's happening at Horseheads High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So moving on to our presentations for the evening, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Douglas. Microphone.
At first, we want to start with our Board of Education presentation on the budget. At this time, we are going to propose our final budget for the board based on our budget development discussions. And I'm going to move it over to Katie Pizzetti, and then I'll follow with superintendent's report afterwards. Thank you. If the board would like so that you can see, there's seats down on the side marked with a white card. Please feel free to move at this time.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Okay, tonight I'm going to walk through our final 21-22 budget. So our projected state aid is where it was last week. As we know, we had our final state budget. So overall, our adjusted increase to state aid is $4.7 million. Items of note for our state aid looking ahead to 21-22 is the increase into our foundation aid of $690,000. We all know when the budget first rolled out, that was proposed to be flat. We now have the added benefit of the $690,000. Our building aid is up $3.4 million. This comes with the approval of the early aid start that we had spoke about a few times during this process, as well as the addition of a half-year building aid payment for the middle school. Our tax cap calculation, our tax-based growth factor and our allowable levy factor, both down from 2021, which does impact our levying ability in the future years. So our allowable property tax change based on the calculation is going down $216,000 or 0.53%. Based on the levy, the final levy information and the information that I currently have from the county, again, it's all estimated at this time. All the assessment data, the equalization rates aren't finalized till over the summer. But with the information I have to date, it is looking like our rate, our full value tax rate will either hold flat or go down. Holding it flat is most conservative. The negative 2% is a little more on the aggressive optimistic side, but the rate is expected to fall somewhere within that range. Given that rate change, the tax rate change per 100,000 is going down $37 or holding flat. Historical trends of how our tax rate has looked as compared to our levy change. We have a history of our levy change typically being more than our tax rate change. This year, it's likely they're both going to go down. Revenue comparison to current year to next year. Tax items is down $708,000. That's the combination of the decrease in the levy as well as a decrease in our anticipated pilot payments. State aid up quite a bit compared to current year due to the items we spoke of prior. Federal aid is a negative $548,000. You'll recall in current year 2021, When we had the supplanting of state aid with federal aid, it was part of the general fund process. This year, all the federal monies we're receiving is going to be held separate from the general fund, so it doesn't need to be captured on this slide. Interfund transfer from the capital fund is some money we had held in the capital fund. We're transferring it back in to get an authorization as part of our annual $1 million project. Holding our debt service fund, 630,000. Other revenues down primarily due to, interest revenue on our interest earnings. Reserves holding the same. Fund balance making progress as we continue to reduce our reliance on that, reducing that down to 500,000. So total change in revenue of $3.5 million or 4.28%. So made some adjustment to the budget after we spoke at the last board meeting. We discussed the desire to add 4 teaching assistants to the budget to support our primary levels. So between the addition of those 4 teaching assistants, and that bottom line is a $100,000 increase to our transfer to capital line. After speaking with our architects to do the playgrounds in the way they really should be done to account for all construction fees, the extra $100,000 would be very beneficial. So between those 2 additions, I've made some adjustments to some salaries, some FTE adjustments based on our current enrollment projections, and some other salary adjustments for staffing changes and longevities and things of that nature. Some adjustments to the BOCES expenses, and then a few miscellaneous items. So I was able to add those items with a few adjustments, which brings us back in line and in budget at the $85.6 million. Budget to budget comparison, an overview where each section of our budget stands. Let's see, item of note, the BOCES 607,000 does include an increase for our instructional equipment for our students in the fall. Increase in debt service relates to our continued growth in our debt with the onset of the capital project. Transportation is in large part due to the settled contract to adjust our bus drivers' pay rate to attract and retain our drivers. And the $400,000 interfund transfers, the increase to our annual capital project to incorporate the playground work. We continue to use the same amount of fund balance, or excuse me, not fund balance, reserves in this budget from our ERS, our employee benefits, accrued liability, and unemployment. Continuing to use the same amount from our debt service fund, consistent with our plan with the state comptroller. The transfer in from the capital fund, and there's that reduction to the fund balance by the 500,000. The overall total is just over $3 million, down from the 3.2, but recall that 3 million does include that one-time use of that 272,000 from the capital fund. So all tools have been used at this point. Our budget is balanced at $85,642,743. So our budget includes several good items. We continue to maintain all of our current educational programs, both in district and through our BOCES services. There are now funds in the budget allocated for 4 teaching assistants for use at our primary levels. Additional funds for instructional equipment, continuation of our secondary calculator upgrades. We have those funds in there for the playground upgrades, additional funds for cleaning supplies, a continuation of the bus GPS and building radio safety initiatives, the addition of the clerical position for the technology department, funds for a bus smell removal system, and all the learning software and programs implemented in the current year for our hybrid and remote instruction. Budget to budget history shows a pretty consistent trend in our budget. 21-22 is at 4.28. Expected to be a little bit more as we grow our debt and receive that additional building aid. Our reserve funds continue to be very strong and in line with the board's reserve plan. So on the ballot, we'll have a proposition for the adoption of the 21-22 budget, the proposition for the purchase of 4 full-size school buses, 3 wheelchair accessible buses, and 1 4-wheel drive vehicle for a cost not to exceed $1.2 million. We have 5 candidates running for 3 open seats on the board. They're listed here in order that they will appear on the ballot. Kevin Adams, Najim Raymond, Doug Johnson, Christine Dale, and Catherine Bernard. There will be a candidates forum here in the auditorium on Wednesday, May 5th at 6 p.m. And just to recap the federal funds, current allocations show from the stimulus package passed in December, we're slated for $3.5 million. From the American Rescue Plan, $4.2 million. From what I understand, a separate learning loss grant of $709,000. We are, however, awaiting final guidance in allocations from New York State. I'm told that's going to come at the end of April, so we'll be keeping an eye out for that. And all of these funds in some capacity can be used for responding to COVID-19 and addressing learning loss. Any questions?
I have a question, comment actually. Just thank you for the adjustments you made. And I'm grateful that you were able to find room for those teaching assistants. That will be I think, great help for students going into next year.
I agree. I think it was great that we were able to add those in. So I was really happy that that was actually brought up at the last meeting to be able to add that in. So thank you. And I just think, overall, I know this is just a ton of work that goes into making this budget, and and it takes a long time for all the pieces to fall together. So I just want to thank everybody who was involved. And it's exciting to be able to go out to the public with a potential either flat or negative tax decrease. Well, I guess it's a negative increase, so it'd be a decrease. So that's really great news. So thank you.
Okay. Am I coming through all right? Closer? Okay. I just think you're amazing to do all of this and get us the budget that we have this year. And you know how very, very happy I am to see that the 4 teaching assistants are being added on to that. And I don't mean to sound greedy, but I hope that is something that's going to be continued and expanded in the future.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, just making a comment on Ms. Corbett. We appreciate those comments as well, and that is an excellent point. Right now, we have the grant money for that. The whole point is to get the ball rolling, so to speak, and try to build sustainability in the years to come, because we need far more than just 4. But at least we finally have gotten to a point over the last 3 years where now we can start. So I want to thank you for that comment. As the board knows, we have a couple future meetings. Again, to reiterate, Wednesday, May 5th, a Board of Education candidate forum at 6 p.m. That will also be live cast as well. Information on how to submit questions for the candidates will be on our website starting next Monday. So there will be a time period to set those in. Just because you submit a question does not mean every question will be asked, but we will try to summarize the feelings of the questions, like when we have several questions that are on a similar tone. The format of that will be that one question will be asked to each candidate, and all candidates will be answering the same question. They will also have an opening session statement, and they will also have a closing session statement. So that will be there, and then it will also be posted to our website after. Then what happens is, obviously, the next night, the Board of Education is obligated to have a public hearing at 6 p.m. That will also be here in the auditorium, and it will be on May 6th. and it will follow the same protocols that we're going through this evening. Then on May 18th, the district will hold its annual budget vote Board of Education election, or what's known as the annual meeting in the high school South Gymnasium, just like we have every year except for last year. And that South Gymnasium will open at 7 a.m. in the morning, and voting will be commenced and continued up until 9 p.m. at night, at which time the vote will be counted. It is a live in-person vote. We must follow all COVID protocols. And if anyone is interested in an absentee ballot, they must go through the absentee balloting procedure. And this year they do have as a reason for absentee ballot because they are fearful of COVID-19, but they still must go through the complete process in order to cast their ballot. So we just want to give everybody that notification. That will also be in our newsletter that's already in process. And I know Ms. Parazzolo is moving forward on that as quick as she can. Once the budget's voted on and passed tonight, we will be on a time crunch to make sure that it's actively out in the required amount of days. So those are our future meetings. And as we go through, I will ask if Mrs. Parazzolo can get me into her email account so I can pull up a couple files so I can show you with my report. So at this time, any further or final questions before we move on through the superintendent's report in regards to this year's 2021-2022 proposed budget for the Horsehead Central School District? Are we ready to proceed? Thumbs up or thumbs down? That will be coming to the vote later on in the finance section. So thank you very much, and thank you for all your dedication going through this process. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my report, I have paper.
Try to wait until you get to the microphone before you start talking. Calendar, which one you want to do first?
Transmission, right? Just keep that ready. Just because this is a little different setup than we have, I do want to share from the last meeting our data points, but I have a couple other areas that I want to cover real quick as we get situated. First of all, we will be going over briefly, real quick, the end of the year calendar for this year. Then in addition, I want to remind people that we are tentatively slating the graduation for the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of the last week of school. I believe that is the 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th. Always proceeding in that direction based on weather. More information will be coming from the high school soon because it will be a ticketed event. There is requirements of a stadium event graduation that people that are in attendance, and right now we're looking to have 4 per individual, but we've got to get our plan approved, but definitely 2. So we are going to ask for families to identify the 4 in order of preference. Those individuals will have to be tested 6 hours prior to the ceremony, or if they can prove their vaccination with a vaccination card and a series, they're all set. Because we don't want to do that at the last minute, we're highly encouraging people, and we will put out a deadline date for that second series, because for vaccination to be effective for us to honor it as the ticket, it must be 2 weeks beyond your last series shot. So therefore, there would be a timeline that would allow you to have that opportunity for that. The tickets will be marked whether you're vaccinated or whether you're not, and it's only with the seal of the school that a ticket will be honored to come in. So the high school is going to be working on that over the next 30 days. Please watch and please complete that information as soon as possible. I'm sure Sarah will make sure she gets it out to all the seniors. This is our last hurrah, and it's going to be the first hurrah in that new field. So we look forward to it. Just a screening concern, we've mentioned we need people to do the screening. We are trying to make sure kids have always the opportunity to be in school, but to keep us open, we need parents. It is your responsibility to do the screening in the morning. If you are having trouble technologically wise, reach out to your building principal. I think they have another option that they're going to be looking at to try to assist those that are having difficulty. But it comes to a point that sooner or later, an administrator is going to have to move a child to remote if we cannot get cooperation. Let's try to avoid that. Some of the issues that we're having right now on COVID spread, which will lead us into the transmission, is mostly in the athletic realm. We are not having a lot of cases, but we are getting some positive cases from spring break right now. Most of those students and families have not re-entered the school, and we thank them for doing and following the right protocol. But we are getting some cases on our sports teams, and those students may have been asymptomatic and then all of a sudden come down with symptoms. We understand that. But what happens is we need every athlete to understand the mask must be on. Just because you're wearing a mouth guard, you still have to have that mouth guard under the mask, not move the mask to put your mouth guard in. The reason being is we've already experienced it. One case will wipe out almost the whole team. We are coming into a spring season when the spring season athletes from last year did not even get a chance to take the field. We are asking for everybody's help. For the next 8 to 9 weeks, minimize your gatherings, especially if you're an athlete, but even if you're other students, so that we can give you exactly what everybody wanted. We need the parents to help, and we need our students to help. In general, things are going very well. Our data is up here, and I'm going to go through that as quickly as possible, but to show you that we are not just randomly pulling data. We have a data set of multiple indicators, and as you can see, when I go through it, you can see the color code starts to dictate and tells us when there's starting to build concern and when there is really not as much concern, but we should always maintain our safety protocols. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, if you can turn your eyes to the screen, I will try to minimize it. Even though it's on a big screen, let's see what we can do here. I just have to be able to read it. So what you're seeing up here is an Excel spreadsheet I've been using all year long. This shows the county data that you can get right on the county website. Then what happens is we have 3 sources of data for Chemung County, Steuben County, Broome County, and this is the New York State website, which the governor says we should be following, and that's what we've been looking at. And all that data compiles down to, according to the new CDC guidelines in their table, into a format that allows us 4 different color codes. The color code of blue is the best color code. The color code of yellow is second best. Orange is third best. And fourth is red, which is the high transmission rate. These 2 columns are the exact CDC guidance. The CDC data is only given daily. They don't allow you to see back data, so I can't really see what happened before. So we just started keeping this, and if you notice on one matrix, we're red, and on the other, yellow. That means the information is divergent, and what the problem is this is stacking our days of the past 7 days. We use that same information in what's known as the COVID Act Now data. Here, notice that's red. We also use that same 7 days. So we're trying to compare apples to apples, but also know what's going on. So in the New York State data, we've done the same thing. Notice in each one of them, they're red, but it doesn't tell you the whole picture. It doesn't tell you the fact that in this data, you have the COVID Act Now. These are our daily cases, but these are 7-day rolling average cases per 100,000. And it's very rare that we get out of the yellow, but we do. So in general, what I'm trying to show the board and the community is I'm using not only a national data from the CDC, the national data from Johns Hopkins University, COVID Act Now, which New York State uses, New York State data itself, as well as the county data. But even going further, if everything up there gives me a picture of whether we're at high, low, or on average in the yellow area, I also can look by the week, how many cases and what's going on with our students and with our staff. What I'm trying to say to the board is this paints the whole picture of what's going on in the district. And then we will post this each week so that the board knows when we get down to the bottom of it. I think it's over here. There it is. This is the actual CDC data table, but we've adapted it so it says Horsehead Central School District transmission table, and we've used the same breakdown for every one of the categories that we have. So each one gets the same type of colorant and level of transmission risk. So that's what we're using here in the district. And each week, roughly Monday, right now, I just had to finalize this data today. So tomorrow we'll be working on putting it up for this week. And we always have to look at the data a week behind and project into the next week. But you can see from the data, it tells you the trends. One last thing I want to show on the data, because you could talk about this forever. Let me get over here. Let me get back up. These are the days to come. But let me go up to the very beginning of the year. If you notice, we know key dates. We closed around October 6th. That right there is the data. Notice there was a lot of yellow. There's some red. But really, if it was just data centered, we would not have had to necessarily close. But ours was not about the data. It was about staffing. We've come a long way since then. We've got a highly vaccinated staff, and we started to learn to be able to address the quarantining as well as the issues. But the big part is, remember, the governor closed us right here on the 23rd. Now look at the data. Notice you can start to see a lot more orange and a lot more red across multiple data sources. That's what we're trying to gauge and look and get a sense of. Now, we even learned since then. Remember Thanksgiving? Here's the Thanksgiving data. So you can start to see some trends. Now, here's right after the holiday data. Notice, even though we're after the holiday, you're starting to see a little bit more orange and red. The infection rate's actually going down at that time. But here's where we are right now. We opened on 4/19. The CDC gave its guidance roughly around, I think it was the end of March. Here's the end of March. Notice the guidance is starting to turn red and blue, the best time. And now here's where we're at. So hopefully that gives the community confidence, our staff confidence, the board confidence. We aren't making this just a sort of gut call. It's based on the data, the numbers, and the issues that we have here, and trying to make it more about Horseheads. This doesn't apply to Elmira, Corning, or anything. They would have to get their own data how they wanted, but it gives us a sense, and that's what I'm hoping the board wanted us to do. And that's why we're open right now, because we've been getting questions. How come we can do this? This approach has been authorized by the New York State Department of Health, and even our own local Department of Health has concurred that they heard the same thing from the New York State Department of Health on their webinar that indicated we could do such type of matrix. So that's what we wanted to get out there for everybody. One last question. Any questions about this data? Why Sue transfers me to this year's end of the year calendar? Does this seem at least reasonable to everybody? That's what I was hoping you would think. It should be go all the way down. Yep, that's it. Okay, I'm all set right there. Thank you very much. This will be going out tomorrow, but I wanted the Board of Education just to see it because we are now in person or remote. So we've recolor coded. The first part of the year is our old cohorts A and B, but we are here as part of this week. Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So you can tell which ones are remote and which ones are in-person days. As you can see, we've changed all of them. The only issue is this one on the 31st. That would have to be great because that's Memorial Day. So that would be a day off, but the calendar has been updated. We will have that grade out going into tomorrow. And then last, June 1st will be a day off. That is a 5-day Memorial Day week. The rest is getting ready. When it comes to regents and final exams, please don't go by this calendar. These are just active days for school, for all schools. The regents exam schedule and testing schedule will be put out specifically by the high school, as students will have to attend on days to take their tests as well as their locals. So I just wanted to update. Any questions on the calendar at this point? This is just for the end of this year at this point. Okay. And then the only last thing I'm going to do real quick, I think I can get off of this, is as we look towards next year's calendar, we're going to bring that forth at the next meeting. Currently, I've had conversations with each of the units. They've given me their verbal. We are all set, excuse me, that we are all set for next year to continue along the lines at the end of the year with the half days versus a day off. So there will be 4 half days at the end of the next year. It's just a contractual matter. But because of those days at the end of the year and the fact that spring break and Good Friday would be in the same week, we would have 3 additional days to take off during the year, which allows for 1 year only. I need to say this, 1 year only right now, we would have a February break. It happens about every 6 years, and it's 6 years. So we would have that for next year along with the April break. Those specific dates will be coming out at the May meeting. But depending on what the state does with remote ability for snow days in the future, will determine if we could ever have February break after that. So please, until the calendar's finalized, that is our hope, unless anything else stands in the way. But I've had assurances from our units that have any input on the contract of the calendar and the days that we are in the right direction for next year. Any questions? I know that was a big thing of the board, is if we could. If not, we will be the only one without a February break in future years, as I know Elmira Heights is going to keep February break in from here on out. Any questions? It certainly would get me in line with the BOCES calendar. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've had several long board meetings. I'm not going to sort of dilly-dally. I'm just going to say I'm so proud of all the teachers, all the faculty and staff, all the students for how they've handled this week. The parents, please, let's all pull together for the next 9 weeks to give our students the best end of the year possible, our sports seasons, and culminating with an outstanding graduation. Thank you all, and thank you on behalf of the board to all of our faculty and staff for a wonderful job. I know we are going to talk about curriculum next, and we are going to talk about our building visits from the board, and I'd like to turn the mic over at this point just to the board president, Ms. Dale, to talk about that, as well as Mr. Gill, because he headed up some of our tours on that.
Great. All right, thank you. So yeah, we had about 2 weeks ago, I guess, is when we started. We had multiple of the board members toured various schools throughout the district. We hit elementary schools, we hit the intermediate, the middle school. I'm not sure if there was a group that hit the high school that day, but then a couple of us went through the high school yesterday. And just a couple things that I want to say, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ann, and then others on the board if they want to add anything else. But specifically, you know, I said this to multiple people. I, you know, hadn't been somebody who needed to be convinced that our teachers were going above and beyond and doing amazing things. And I've been, you know, full support of that all year. But then to actually see it in practice was a completely different ballgame for me. I, you know, literally had tears in my eyes almost the entire time. I've made comments to so many people after that, just to see the teachers having to juggle so much in the classroom with all of the technology and students on the computer and versus the students that are in the classroom, and then having to make adjustments at a moment's notice. We had a situation in one of the schools where there was a student that wasn't feeling well, and so that teacher had to completely take her entire class classroom and reposition into another classroom in the building, get all set up, get the technology all set up, get her students settled, and then get the day started. And, you know, just being able to have to come up against those hurdles and then be able just to do it seamless was actually pretty amazing to see. And I know there was a lot of stress that morning, especially having people there watching the whole process. But if anything, it just solidified even more the fact that our teachers are just continuing to go above and beyond. And it really makes me proud to be a part of this district. And I know Marianne, I'm going to use her word that she said last week about calling our teachers superheroes, and they really are. And then we saw the same thing in the high school yesterday about a class that had to be displaced and go into another classroom because of a similar thing. So there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes in these classrooms that I don't think the community and the parents really have line of sight to. And I wish everybody could be a fly on the wall in these classrooms to really see what's happening and all the balls that our teachers are juggling. So I just want to say thank you. I know I've said it at every board meeting this entire year. However, to see it firsthand is just, it took me to a whole other level. So I just really appreciated the tour so much. So I want to turn it over to Marianne because I know Marianne had spent one of the remote Wednesdays with several teachers, and she has a lot of observations that she wants to share as well.
Am I close enough now? Okay. I wrote some notes down, and, you know, I was glad to hear Christine Ermsdale say that, you know, she got a little teary. When I was working on what I wanted to say to you, I was getting a little teary too, because I saw some absolutely wonderful things. So excuse me from reading from notes, but it was my sincere pleasure to visit the Big Flats Elementary School and also our intermediate school. It was a few weeks ago, and it was a Wednesday. So it was one of their virtual teaching in the morning, and then the afternoon was for their planning and so forth. What I observed was mind-boggling. I use that word so often that I began to worry that Dr. Douglas thought I had a really limited vocabulary, but it was absolutely mind-boggling. I began by seeing teachers with preschoolers doing physical activity. I mean, jumping around and dancing, and the kids on the screen were just absolutely delighted and so engaged in what was going on. I saw many teachers preparing the packets that would be going out and sent home for the virtual learners. There were piles scattered throughout the room. Teachers were ripping pages from workbooks, running off copies of needed worksheets, and they were making sure that each and every child would have everything he or she needed for the upcoming lessons of the following week. I actually saw an art teacher filling these little mini vials of paints that would also be sent home in the packets. How much easier it would have been for her to pack a color page and a few crayons rather than taking the time to fill 4 or 5 little paint vials so the children could have a really nice art experience. I saw how the children were still able, through all of this, to access books through the school library, thanks to a system developed by the librarian, a safe system. I am sure that similar practices were being observed in the other elementary schools that I was not able to visit. I sat in on an intermediate school team meeting where teachers were collaborating on the best means to execute their upcoming lessons. I saw a very long table in a school lobby filled with labeled boxes for parent pickups. And I was told that it was the office staff who were manning these each day when it was a pickup day, certainly going beyond their job description. I was also told about a Horseheads police officer who was helping to deliver packets to homes, leaving them on porches of families who couldn't come to the schools because they were in quarantine. I saw multiple maintenance workers scrubbing, disinfecting desks, tables, restrooms, to make our schools as safe as possible for our children. And they were all doing it with big smiles on their faces. I also had an opportunity to sit with some of the teachers at the intermediate school and talk to them about their concerns. I heard words like time, tiredness, frustrations because some parents who were working from home were not really able to devote the responsibility and time for their role in the virtual learning of their home student. And they praised repeatedly those parents who were working so hard to help with the virtual learning. They were doing double planning, preparation of lessons, one for the in-school, one for the virtual. And it was disheartening for them to hear negative comments when they knew they were working so hard. They weren't complaining, and I can honestly say that. They were not complaining. They were just voicing legitimate concerns. And as a former classroom teacher for over 34 years, I got it. I really got it. The tears came. I now work for the State University at Cortland, and we use the rubrics to grade our students on various teaching skills, on their work ethic, and 18 different categories. The rubric is 1, unsatisfactory, 2, developing, 3, proficient, and 4, exemplary. The teachers, administrators, and staff of the Horsehead Central School District earn 4s. Their work ethic is stellar, in my mind. This is the hard one. I have never been so proud to serve on the Board of Education that not only represents the community, but these amazing individuals. At our last board meeting, Mr. Conklin shared a piece from our state school board newsletter. It was so on point. Stop dwelling on the negative when there is so much positive happening in our district. I may have mentioned this at our last meeting, the old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I feel it takes a community to support and acknowledge the great work that has been done on so many levels to provide the children of Horseheads a safe place to be and the very best education during these difficult times. So I will end with a simple call to all. Go Raiders!
Thank you, Marianne. Any other board members who attended the tours? If you would like to say something or have any comments, please feel free. Others? Okay.
Close enough?
Closer.
Closer?
There you go.
That good? That good? Okay. I don't think I can say anything better than what was just said, to be perfectly honest with you. And I can't say that I saw anything that I didn't expect to see as I toured the buildings. I think there's one clear message to be taken from all this. Every staff member of the school district is an absolute hero. Every student, just like my favorite student sitting down at the end of the seats down there, they're all heroes. I'd say this, I had the great opportunity to take part in mock interviews this past week for the New Visions kids. And what an incredible group of kids I was able to get exposed to. And I told them all one thing, what an incredible story they're going to be able to tell somebody someday. If they use this the right way, and maybe this is my bias as a hiring manager, someone who sees people every day and makes decisions on whether or not they get jobs. Adversity is a funny thing. If we use it the right way, it can buy us a ticket to a place that we never could have gone otherwise. And I told every student that I was in front of last week that your job right now is to prepare yourself to tell your story. Because if you use this the right way, the very first time you sit down for a job interview, you will get everything that you want and you will blow everybody else away. So every single person in the school district, I don't care what their title is, you are an absolute hero. And that needs to be understood. Now, the challenge that I'd throw out there to the Board of Education and to Dr. Douglas and to everybody else who's in the school district. So what now? So what next? How do we use this to get even better, to set Horseheads Central School District further apart from everybody in the area? Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. Oh, Warren?
Can everybody hear me? All right. So I just want to speak for 1 second on the technology issue. And anybody that truly knows me and my ability with technology, if they use the word novice, that would be a generous description of my skills when it comes to the use of technology. So I was really awestruck in the schools that I was in. And when I went home, I'm old enough to remember when the Jetsons first came out as a cartoon. And you all know it's an animated look at a futuristic society. And at the time, it just seemed absurd what was there. And now we're seeing some of those things have already come to fruition. But that's kind of what I saw in all of the classrooms. The use of technology was just so futuristic, it boggled my mind. And the teachers used it seamlessly, and the students used it seamlessly. So I see a bright future with the use of technology and how they were able to use it and turn on a dime and then use it in a different fashion. So I was exceedingly impressed with all of it.
Thank you, Warren. And Tony, did you have something that you were going to share? Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, it was our opportunity and to show you the realities of our classrooms and what our teachers do. Those multiple screens, I think often speaking with a couple of you that you often see from the student lens, that singular, they're looking at a screen and they see a teacher, but then on the teacher end, the multitude of what's happening, you know, the kids on the screen over here, the classroom of 10 kids over here, and that balancing act and the difficulties, the talent that comes from that and the skill set. 2 points, and actually 1 point coming from Warren and Tom's comments about what's next. That's been a big conversation amongst our instructional team about how do we harness, we're finally kickstarted, education's been lagging systematically across the nation, and in these 21st century skill sets. We're 1/5 the way into it. We're still talking about 21st century skill sets. Time to ditch that term. I think we've achieved a lot of those and harnessed that energy and can continue that. We have a lot of teachers that are interested in continuing some of the practices. They see the worthy, how it's worthy. And I think for once we can start calling our students actually a little bit more digital natives. We used to throw that term around a lot, but I think there was a lot missing from that as far as underlining skill sets. The resiliency, because they have strong adults in their life and our teaching staff and our community that's supporting them has led to that resiliency. These students have grown in ways that we don't measure as a system typically, and we can't lose sight of that. Our standardized tests and everything, we'll measure them against those standards in New York State and working that way, and we will not lose sight of that. We are essential learning. However, I challenge us to think about everything else they gain and everything that they've gained throughout this last year, and what they'll continue to gain from that base set of skills that we, like I said, don't have measurement tools for, but they certainly learn differently. The younger kids' brains are being wired a little bit differently in the current environment, and we need to keep that in mind. We can't reset to an old format because our students aren't learning that way, and they're going to see some reluctancy in returning that way. We have to consider where they are now and move to the next step in their learning. So, and on that note, we talk about the monies that we're getting and this gap I also want to make sure that's clear that I don't like using that term. I'm going to be honest with the board, and I've been honest with Dr. Douglas. It sets up, we talk about social emotional health of our kids. If we start talking about them having a gap, what are we doing to their mindset? Right? We're already setting them up as less than. So we have to make sure when we think about what's next, we take their strengths like we do in any good student meeting. First thing we talk about is what are they doing well and what do they need some help on? So let's make sure we harness what they're doing well, build on that, be specific in our interventions when we look to growth for next year, and not just a blanket statement that there's a gap. Every student is going to be different, and we need to recognize that because they have measured and gained in ways, like I said, we cannot even imagine. So just a keeping in mind, trying to find a different way to say the word gap, but it's what everybody's calling it. Like I said, I think there's much more learning that has happened than we can ever imagine in those brains. So that's all.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, moving on. We did not have an audit committee this month, but we did have a policy committee. So report from the policy committee.
Okay, we met on March 30th, and we discussed the policies 3230 through 4000, organization chart, school building administration, development of regulation and district guides, and student objectives and instructional goals. We were satisfied as terms of the organizational chart, and we did not make any changes there. We're recommending changes on school building administration, development of regulations and district guides, and student objectives and instructional goals.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our finance items for action. We have 8.02 through 8.21. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any questions or discussion on any of these items, 8.02 through 8.21? Doug?
As a BOCES employee, I'm going to abstain on 8.10, even though it's a different BOCES that the cooperative purchasing resolution is being made through. All cross contracts with other BOCES have to be funneled through the Greater Southern Tier BOCES for which I work. And so to avoid the appearance of impropriety, I'm going to abstain.
Thank you, Doug. Warren?
I'll abstain on 8.14.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. And then for abstentions, we have Doug on 8.10 and Warren on 8.14. I am. Okay, so since there's only 6 of us here, that still passes all of them because on the 2 abstentions, we still have 5 votes for those. So, okay. All right, moving on to our personnel items for action. We have 9.02 and 9.03. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any comments or discussion? One thing that I have, and Caitlin, I apologize, I did not see it the first time I looked at this, but I just noticed it. We have our JV boys soccer coach is listed on here twice. Item number 19 and item number 25, both with a different total, a different stipend. So he was a really good coach, but I don't know if we want to pay him twice. Any other comments or questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay, great. Item 10 are miscellaneous items for action. We have 10.02 through 10.04. Can I please have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions, or discussion? Warren?
Could you just explain on 10.04 what the administrative budget means, the vocabulary? What am I exactly approving?
To Katie, but the administrative budget is a calculated percentage of administrative service fees to run the GST BOCES that is basically weighted out on a regional weighted average daily allowance. It's a calculation. This year, their administrative side of the budget is kept very low, if not at zero. I just don't have the specific budget, but that was presented earlier. Katie, do you have anything else to say? Okay, we'll come right back to you, Mr. Conklin. Is that okay?
Yeah, so this isn't services we're purchasing from BOCES. This is specifically,
This is the cost associated with our yearly services, yearly fees that we have to in our budget for like CTE, CTE, our curriculum, but it's the administrative side of that budget. There's the CTE side that we pay in our BOCES services and the administrative fee. It all comes out of our budget.
yeah, I'm not opposed. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know what it means.
No problem.
Brian?
On 10.03 on the BOCES board members, there's only 2 candidates for 4 positions. Is that the case?
There is, and that's what I was raising my hand for. There are 2 candidates for 4 positions. One of the candidates that's not running again is from the Campbell Savona, so they try to get regional distribution of their members. So a superintendent, Mrs. No, I just had her name.
Kathy Hagenberg.
Kathy Hagenboo. I wanted to say Hagenbush, and I knew it wasn't that, but Hagenboo is retiring, so she is eligible, as well as I believe the other person is Alice, is it?
Yes, Alice Lyon.
Alice Learn, who also worked here at Horseheads, but she's sort of in the Odessa Montour. And there are 2 other seats open, but we already have a representative on for our district, Ms. Pam Strollo. And I would suggest that if you are going to approve this, that the board consider just casting a vote for each at this point, and that would be your affirmative vote.
I would agree with that. Thank you.
Doug?
So normally when I abstain on items in the financial report, it's because I'm avoiding the appearance of impropriety. This time I'm going to abstain on the election of the BOCES board members because they would be my boss at BOCES. And also 10.04, the administrative budget. Among other things, Mr. Conklin, my salary and benefits come out of that budget. So it'd be a direct illegal conflict of interest for me to vote on that either way. So I will abstain on the whole matter.
I was trying not to say that, though.
Okay, any other comments? Katie? Thanks, Katie. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And we have then the noted abstentions on 10.03 and 10.04. Okay, thank you. Our board policies for our second reading that are up for action tonight, we have 11.01 through 11.05. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions, concerns, discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, and as Doug mentioned in his policy committee report, we have 4 policies that are up for first reading, 12.01 through 12.04. Does anybody have any questions on any of those so the policy committee can discuss prior to our next meeting when they're up for action? Okay. All right, so that just leaves us to our board member comments. So any other comments other than what has already been discussed related to the tour? Dr. Douglas?
This is not necessarily a board member comment, but it is something that I forgot in my report, just to let the board know. One of the things with the screening tools is that we have to ask the community, just like we said, if your child is sick, showing symptoms, they are to stay home. We've had a couple issues of late where a parent has unfortunately said, oh, it's not that bad, go to school, and if you have a problem, see the nurse. That was reported to us by a couple students. So that means the child had symptoms. We need the parents to understand we have to have compliance with these safety rules. If a parent can't, we do not want to catch the child in the middle, but the administration will have no other choice but to place that student into remote if we cannot follow the required safety rules. So we just want to give a notice. If your child is showing any symptoms, they're to stay home, contact the nurse. Do not even say, well, you'll be better. Keep them home. That way we do not put the child in the middle of it. We appreciate everybody's help there. So thank you.
Okay, a couple things I'd like to say. One, I just want to thank everybody in the district for doing everything that you could to get us to where we're back to 4 days this week. It was not an easy task by anybody in the district. All the desks that had to be built and moved and all the extra cleaning and then all the extra preparation from all of our administrators and our staff. It has not gone unnoticed. I know there was a lot of excitement. It felt like it was the first day of school all over again. I got a lot of messages on Monday from multiple people just saying how excited they were to have the kids back and the kids that were all excited. So thank you to everybody who played a role in making all of that happen. So I'm very happy that we were able to. I'm happy that the guidance was adjusted to enable us to be able to reopen. And then the last thing is more of just a plea to everybody, is just not to let any of us let our guards down. It's great that everybody is back, but the last thing we want to have happen is to have to shut down. And especially once our kids are all excited now to be back and be able to be with their friends and be able to finish out the school year in more of a normal environment. We don't want to have to take that away. And we don't want, looking at our spring athletes, they didn't get a season last year, and we really wanted to make sure that they get a season this year. So please, everybody, students, staff, community members, parents, please do not let your guard down and be even more diligent now than we have been, because we want to keep that excitement, and we want to keep everybody engaged, and we want to keep everybody safe. So just really keep that in mind. Anything else? Any other comments anybody has? Okay, great. This might be the shortest board meeting we've had in a long time. All right, it might still be light outside. Okay, so lastly, I'm just going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our Board of Education meeting for April 21st. Our next meeting will be the annual meeting for the district's annual vote, followed by, I believe it's May 19th will be the next meeting of the Board of Education. Thank you all, and we are so happy to be back.